Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dallas Cowboys coverage after a win, but sort of not the win we were looking for, I guess. That's kind of been the narrative. First of all, before I want to get into it, I want to say, okay, it wasn't the best, but you did win by 14 points. You covered the spread. It wasn't a bad game. It just wasn't the dominant performance, the get it right game that we were all looking for. So I don't want to, be overly critical because most teams, if you win by 2 touchdowns, you cover the spread, it's not a problem. But for the Cowboys, it feels like it's just a little more complicated than that. So I'm going to break it all down. We're going to talk about it, the playoff picture, everything going on. It's been a pretty busy week, and even after the game, as I'm filming this, there's been quite a bit going on. So I'm going to break it all down. But before I get into it, I just wanted to say a quick shout out and just that my prayers, thoughts continue to be with the Bills' safety Damar Hamlin. Suffered a really just scary injury on Monday Night Football. I'm sure you're all aware of it now. He had suffered a cardiac arrest on the field, had to undergo CPR just to bring him back. Just incredible job by all the medical staff of the Bills, both coaches, teams, players, fans, just for handling it in a really professional and really good and upfront manner. Obviously, that game was postponed and now it's been canceled by the NFL, so that'll have its own playoff implications. But for now, just continued thoughts and prayers for Damar Hamlin as he is doing better. I heard this morning that he is awake now. They have been able to remove the breathing tube, so he's now able to communicate and breathe, starting to breathe on his own. So just incredible recovery for him, but just continued prayers for him and his family as he continues to recover, heal, and hopefully, just get back home, get back with his friends, his family, his teammates, as he continues to just heal and get through this, just such a scary situation. So just continued thoughts go out to him and his family. So just wanted to mention that real quick. So back to the Cowboys. It was just, meh. I think that's kind of how it's been really for the last month. Just the games have been, you've only suffered the one loss to Jacksonville recently, but it's just, the games have been, it just feels like you've really been playing down to your competition. I think that's the best way to put it. A lot of inferior opponents. You barely beat the Texans. You obviously blew the Jaguars game. That's a game you should have won. The Eagles game was good. It was good. That was a great game. I don't want to take anything away from that one. But again, here you are against a decimated Titans team, a team that's either completely hurt or resting all their players. You're going up against a third string in Joshua Dobbs. No Derrick Henry, no Jeffrey Simmons. They're missing everyone. And you still, again, you won by 14 points, but you struggled a bit. And offensively, Dak, again, 2 interceptions. It's just, well, the first one wasn't his fault. I get that. And a lot of them this season have not been his fault. I don't want to, I'm one of the biggest Dak supporters. I'm not going to throw this all on him. But at the end of the day, you have 14 interceptions. That's the league, and you have played 5 less games than Derek Carr, who you're tied with. Or maybe 4, since Derek Carr didn't play last game now. But just, it's a problem. It is. And I get that some of them have been unlucky. I'm not going to say that he's just been a bad quarterback. I'm not going to be one of those box score guys. But at the end of the day, 14 interceptions is a problem. Too many of them have been his fault, and too many of them, well, maybe not completely on him. As an elite quarterback, if that's what we're calling Dak, you got to be able to make better decisions and not force balls in where maybe your receiver did run the wrong route. But as a quarterback, you got to be able to recognize that. It's unacceptable at this point. They're, again, not all on him, but too many of them are. And even though, Dak, he's been, to me, he plays really good 90% of the night. Maybe even more, maybe even 95% of the night. I'd say 90. And then, say 5% are just, okay. And then, just 2, 3, 4, 5% are just horrible, terrible. And it's a small percentage. And normally it's okay, that's just a little bit. But when the plays are that bad, just these off interceptions, those are killers. They're killers to momentum. They're killers to your game plan. And that's what we saw against the Jaguars. They put you behind. That's what we've seen against many teams. It's put you behind early. Even in the Colts game, the interceptions put you behind. You were barely winning at halftime. In the fourth quarter, the defense and the offense, everything took over, and it was all okay. But they're killers, and that's the thing. It's just, it puts you in bad situations. And Dak, in his excellent moments, has been able to overcome it many times this season. But in the Packers and the Jaguars games, he was not. He brought you back, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough. But you just got to wonder, you wouldn't be in that situation at all if it weren't for these interceptions. And, I mean, again, most of it's been good. Dak, I'm just not saying he's had a bad season. I think he's had a good year. But the interceptions are undoubtedly a problem. And it's got to be better because they're killers. Whether they're his fault or not, it's a big problem. And it just has to be addressed. Whether it's with scheming, game plan, getting guys open better, just not forcing things. There's a lot of different ways to place blame, but it's got to improve, and it starts with the one throwing it, and that's Dak Prescott, one way or another. Moving on from that, the run game also struggled. Ezekiel Elliott was really, I don't want to even put that all on him. I don't know if some of it was just bad offensive line play because it wasn't like he was just missing anything. It was just as soon as he got the ball, he was clobbered. But either way, it was a rough game. Barely not even averaging, I think, 2 yards of carry. Had the one touchdown, but and that got to give him credit for that. He keeps his streak going. But it was a rough game. Malik Davis looked good when he played. I honestly wish they'd given him a little more carries, a few more carries. But I think this just really highlighted the importance of Tony Pollard. He is the best running back on this team. He has proved that time and time again, especially this season. As long as he plays next week, he'll go for 1,000 yards this year, and Zeke, he'll be around 900. It's been a great year for both of your running backs, but Tony Pollard is undoubtedly a necessity. You need him because you saw what happened without him against a Titans defense who is good against the run, but again, you're missing Jeffrey Simmons. You're decimated. There's no reason it should have been that bad, and it just showed the burst, the elusiveness of Tony Pollard missing and how much that took away from your offense. Tony Pollard is one of your best offensive players, without a doubt, and you really missed him. So I think that just comes to show how important he is. And just going into this offseason, his contract expiring, Zeke's contract has a way out. You can't just say whatever running back you put's going to work. Tony Pollard's really important. Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is still really important. Maybe, you draft a running back. How's that going to go? A lot of decisions to be made, but Tony Pollard cannot just be looked at as we can let him go and we'll be fine. Because right now, he is one of the most important players on your offense. He's one of the most important players on this team. And his absence just proved that even more, without a doubt. So, receiving, I thought was pretty good. CeeDee Lamb went for 100 yards again. He's been incredible. He's up to 7th in the league in receiving. I think he hit 1,300 yards on the year. Such a great year for him. Dalton Schultz, though, gets my player of the game. He had 2 big touchdowns, around 60 yards receiving. He was really good. Gallup, a couple good grabs as well. T.Y. Hilton, I've been so impressed with him. In just 2 games, he's already over 100 yards. He's really just made such a great impact. Coming in, just kind of what we wanted from, we're wanting OBJ, James Washington. Well, we got it in T.Y. Hilton. He's making such a big impact. Really impressed with him. And with that, I want to make note that James Washington was waived earlier this week. So that's, tough for me. He was one of your big free agent signings. Tough to see him go. He had no stats but a drop. So he wasn't even active. He was a healthy scratch. So it makes sense. You're going to have to bring some players off injured reserve anyway, whether that's Matt Farniok or Jonathan Hankins coming off soon. Matt Farniok, his 21-day practice window was activated this week, so he has a chance to play. I wouldn't say it's likely. It seems like the Cowboys tend to prefer a full week of practice before they play in the game, but it is possible he could be activated on Saturday, so make note of that. Jonathan Hankins, I think he'll be ready for the first playoff game, so these are two guys you're going to have coming back on the roster. It makes sense just to free one up now. James Washington, we had high hopes for him to really be your wide receiver 3 coming in, but obviously the early injuries, he missed some camp, missed the preseason, missed most of the regular season, and now he just made no impact. And maybe he comes back on the practice squad. I'm not sure where they're at with him there, but for now, just didn't really make an impact. He's waived. Frees up a roster spot. Most likely it's going to be filled by Matt Farniok either this week or next week. So just wanted to make a quick note of that. James Washington has been waived from this Cowboys team. The offensive line, again, just okay. I've been impressed with them overall this year. It's been a group that's been really not a lot of experience outside of Zack Martin. You have a rookie at left tackle. Terrence Steele really was having a great year. Unfortunately, he's gone, but Tyron Smith has really made an impact in himself, coming back and getting on track. I've really been impressed with him. And just excited to have him back. Hasn't been perfect, but I think he'll continue to return to form as he gets some consistency going. So I've still been impressed with the offensive line this year. Dak has really not taken a lot of sacks, but I think the run game is really the biggest thing that was struggling today. Once Pollard's back, I think he'll improve, though. So the offensive line, not perfect, but I can't be mad at them. I think they've done their job well enough for this team to be successful. And that's really been, I think, the case with a lot of the defense as well. Not the best game. We've seen them. I think it's been a tale of two halves of the year for the defense. First half, amazing. Best defense in the league, and now it's just been solid. It hasn't been perfect, but the turnovers, I think, have made up for a lot of the struggles in getting off the field. It was better today. You only allowed 13 points. That's more than enough to win the game. So the defense did their job, but just Micah Parsons, I don't know if he's been banged up a lot this year. He just hasn't shown the same explosiveness that he showed at the beginning of the year. He was dominant defensive player of the year. Now he's still in that conversation, but I'm not sure he wins. I think Nick Bose has kind of taken over that spot. And he's still been awesome. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but he just hasn't shown that same just utter dominance that he showed at the beginning of the year. I think there's some injuries there that haven't been fully disclosed, so I think an off-season of rest will really do him good to be fresh again for next year. But for now, I just want to see. Hopefully he can just kind of regain his footing. Maybe a rest game would have been better off for him. He was playing with that cast on his hand, which will be gone for next game. It seems like that's healed and he's okay. But I just hope that he can kind of return to that earlier season form along with the rest of the defense. DeMarcus Lawrence had a great game. Shout out to him. He made a lot of impact, breaking up passes, forced a fumble. Dante Fowler had that strip sack. He's been awesome. We talked about James Washington being a disappointment. Dante Fowler was your other big signing. He's really made a good impact so far. 6 sacks on the year, I think. Maybe 7 now with that strip sack. I'm not quite sure there, but he's really played well all season. So the defense, I think it's just still the secondary that's giving me trouble. Anthony Brown and Jourdan Lewis going down, it's really hurt you a lot. More than I think we expected. Everyone was kind of out on Anthony Brown anyway, and he is not perfect. He's better than NaShon Wright, and he's better than Kelvin Joseph, and it's shown the struggles, and I think some of the pass rush, it's been on that. I talked about it last video. When your secondary can't cover and the quarterbacks are getting open that quickly, your defensive pass rush isn't going to get home, much like it did earlier in the season. So I think it just shows the value of Anthony Brown and Jourdan Lewis that we kind of took them for granted because now you're really, really struggling in the secondary. Shout out to NaShon Wright for getting the interception today, even though it was not his best game. And shout out to DaRon Bland, though. He has done an incredible job stepping in for Jourdan Lewis in the slot. He's been awesome. Great rookie find in him, but you're just still missing a cornerback, too. He's a great slot cornerback, maybe your slot cornerback of the future, but you need a cornerback, too, and that's going to be a huge issue this offseason. But for now, you're not just going to find one on the street, and it's just going to be continued to work with what you have. I think Dan Quinn and the defense has done as good of a job as you can ask them to do, but it's still a problem, and hopefully the team can continue to adjust, continue to hopefully make up for it in other areas, and I think the defense has a lot of talent, and they have a lot to make up for some of these issues, but it's definitely a different defense than we saw earlier in the season. You're missing a lot of key players, some of which you will be getting back. I think the run game has been better than it was earlier in the year, and I think it's going to improve even more once you get Jonathan Hankins back. He is your best run-stopping defensive tackle, and Leighton Vander Esch is huge at the linebacker position. I saw some stats the other day, just crazy how the run-stop efficiency has dropped drastically since the two of them have been gone, particularly Leighton Vander Esch. It's been incredible, and it's just going to be exciting to see them back. They'll both be back for the playoffs, and it's really going to be huge because they've made such an impact, and I think a lot of these guys just under the radar. Vander Esch has had a great year. Jonathan Hankins has done a good job as well since coming in. We can't take these guys for granted because they're making a huge impact, and unfortunately, a lot of us aren't seeing the impact as big as it is until they're gone. So it's going to be huge getting them back as the defense continues to sort of revamp, rebolster itself, and be ready for the playoffs because this defense still has the talent. A lot of the guys are still here. You still have Micah Parsons. You still have DeMarcus Lawrence. You're going to get Leighton Vander Esch back. You still have Trayvon Diggs, who's been having, I think, another underrated season. Even without the interceptions, his coverage has improved dramatically. And DaRon Bland's been picking up some of the slack with those picks. Your safeties core is incredible. You have so many great players on this defense. We've seen it this year, and if it can just reemerge, sort of get back to that first half form, it's going to be huge. And I think that's the number one thing. We still lead the league in turnovers for the second year in a row. That's unprecedented. I mean, that's very rare. The first time since, I think, 1972 that a team has led the league in consecutive years. The defense has had its shortcomings. There's been maybe too many yards allowed, too many first downs, trouble getting off the field a bit. But when you have those type of turnovers to change the game, to break the game, like I was saying with Dak Prescott, those are game changers. And even if you allow some more yards than you wish, if you can keep coming up with those turnovers, that's huge. And it's easy to say they're not sustainable, but for this defense, they have been. So if it works, it works. Don't want to take anything away from them there. So the turnovers, it's been awesome. Keep it up, and the defense will be just fine. Hopefully, even improved going into the playoffs. Special teams, good as usual. Maher, Anger, Turpin, awesome. Nothing more to say there. So for now, that's really all. That's about it. It's just, again, I wanted these two games, the Titans and the Commanders now, sorry about that, to be get-right games. Games to clean it all up and to really just be confident going into the playoffs. The Titans game, unfortunately, was not that, but you still have one more left. You have the Commanders. They're going to have Sam Howell out there. Get it right. Make this rookie look miserable. Bother him, pester him defensively. Dak, please, I want one game. One game for Dak Prescott with no interceptions. Just a confidence boost to go into the playoffs. I'm not concerned with resting starters at all. I just hope the Giants aren't either, because you still have a lot of scenarios at play for the playoffs. So for now, just go in, get it right. No matter what happens with the playoffs, you can't control it, but you can control how you play. You're going to go up against a Commanders team who has nothing to play for anymore. Get it right. Dominate them. No more of this, playing down to the competition. No. Vikings game. Colts fourth quarter. That's what I want to see. And if the team can do that, that is a huge confidence boost going into the playoffs. And speaking of the playoffs, let's break down the playoff picture real quick, because there are a lot of scenarios. CeeDee Lamb was talking about how it's complicated. He doesn't want to think about it. But for me, that's all I've been thinking about. I want the Cowboys to win, for sure, but there's just a lot of situations and scenarios going on that are key, and I want to address that real quick. So the Cowboys right now, you still sit at the fifth seed, and you will be playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if you stay there. They're going to win the South. They've clinched it already, and they are probably going to be the worst team in the playoffs, record-wise. So that's one scenario. You stay here and you get the fifth seed, and then you play the Bucs wild card weekend, and then following that, you're going to have to play the number one seed, which looks like for now would be the Eagles. But there's a lot that can still change. It looked like that was set in stone 3 weeks ago, but now it's different. You needed to win out. You need the Eagles to lose out, and so far you're 2 steps of the way there out of 3. You've beat the Eagles lost, you won. Now one more game. If we win next week against the Commanders and the Eagles lose to the Giants, we win the division. We just like that, we tie the Eagles up and we win the division. Man, if we had just beaten either the Packers or the Jaguars, we would have won it right now. Just something to think about. That's rough. But for now, you still have a chance. If the Eagles lose, you win, you're division champs. And you ensure that you at least get the 2 seed. That's huge because the Vikings were in the 2 seed right now. And they actually obviously lost to the Packers last week. And that's huge because that knocks them down to the 3rd seed if the Eagles situation happens. So if the Cowboys do win their division, they have the tiebreaker over the Vikings after they shellacked them earlier in the year. So if the Cowboys do win the division, we at minimum get the 2nd seed because the Eagles are knocked down. The Vikings are behind us. It's only the 49ers now that we have to worry about. So if we do knock the Eagles out, the 49ers then take the number 1 seed unless they lose. So I was really hoping they would lose to the Raiders. It was so close. And unfortunately, I'm just not sure if they lose this week. I think they have the Cardinals. It's a tough ask for sure, especially with how much the 49ers have to play for. Really wishing they could have lost to the Raiders. But if by some miracle Trace McSorley or whoever they have at quarterback now goes out and beats the 49ers, they also go a game behind you. And then you get the number 1 seed. First round bye, you get it all. So the Cowboys, there's a lot of flexibility. They either have the 5th seed or the 2nd or 1st seed. It's frustrating how the system works to me. I think it should just be the 7 best teams based on record. I don't like the division winners automatically get the 4th seed at least. I don't like that at all. I mean, I think they should just go to the NBA, NHL format where it's just the best teams go in order instead of the division leaders and all that. But, well, that's just how it is. So for now, either way, it's going to be an interesting path because if you do get the 2nd seed, obviously the 1st seed, you get the first round bye, and then you'll await the winner of, it will depend the lowest remaining seed. But if you go with the 2nd seed, that's interesting because then you play the worst wild card, which is either the Lions, but in all likelihood, it's probably going to be the Packers. So that's its own issue. Do you want to play the Packers in the playoffs? I don't. But if it means that I get home field advantage through the first 2 games, that's preferable because if you're the 2nd seed, you get home field advantage in the wild card and in the divisional round if you make it there. If you have the 5th seed, you don't get home field advantage at all. You have to go into Tampa and then into Philly or San Francisco, Minnesota, wherever it may be. You don't get a single home game. If you get the 2nd seed, you get 2. Obviously, if you get the 1st seed, you have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So I think the home field advantage is really the key aspect in all of this. So, but let me know, what do you want? Would you rather play the Bucs or would you rather play the Packers? Just straight up. You've never beat the Brady and the Bucs ever. You've never beat Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs ever. So it's a tough situation, but of course I got to go with the Rodgers and the Packers because they are not the same Packers they've been. They still beat us even though they shouldn't have. We were in that game. We were in position to win that game. We blew it. That's strictly on us. If we get them again, this time at home, I think we should better beat them. And if we don't, then we don't deserve to be going anywhere anyway. And that's its own issue. So I think I want the Packers just because you get those 2 home field games. Of course, if you win. But I just like that so much better than not a single home game in the playoffs. So there's a lot going on. I wish we could get that 1st seed. That's looking unlikely, though, now that the 49ers did not lose last week. But there's just a lot of situations. So tell me again, Packers or Bucs, 2nd seed or 5th seed. There's a lot that can still happen, but it all starts with the Eagles losing. So we were all Saints fans last week. That's weird for me to say because I don't like the Saints. We're all Giants fans this week, which is even weirder to say. But if it means beating the Eagles, which I hate the most, I'll take it. Whatever it takes. So it's just going to be, I just so hope the Eagles can lose. I would so much rather like to get that second seed than have to go in as a wild card. But whatever happens, you're going to play an inferior team on wild card weekend. Either the Packers or Lions. I don't want it. Let's just not guarantee the Packers are going to win, though, because I think a lot of us have done that. We've just said the Packers are in because that's not true. That's not true. Hold on. If the Lions beat the Packers, they have a chance to make it in. And the Seahawks also still have a chance. I think if the Lions beat the Packers and the Seahawks also win, then the Seahawks make it. If the Lions win and the Seahawks lose, then the Lions make it. If the Packers win, regardless of other situations, the Packers are in. So the Packers do have the best odds. I want to make that clear. But if the Lions win, they just as easily make it in. So it's not a guarantee that the Packers beat the Lions. Lions have been rolling lately. But I think we all know that the Packers probably have the best chance. So just keep that in mind, though. We could be playing the Lions. We could even be playing the Seahawks. Who knows? There's a lot that can still be sorted out. So just stay tuned because it's very, very important week 18. Lots of clinching scenarios throughout the league. But for the Cowboys, there's so much variance. We can be 5th. We can be 2nd. We can be 1st. And we just got to hope for the best. And it all starts with the Eagles losing because if they win, then it all goes out the window. We're stuck with the 5th seed. So go Giants. Please don't rest your starters. Please beat the Eagles and give us a chance. So that's, I think, about it for now. One quick update I wanted to mention. Tyler Biadasz went down with initially what looked like to be a knee injury. It looked a lot like Terrence Steele's. The guy fell on his leg. I was really afraid that might be the end of his year. But we got some good news. It is just not a knee injury, but a high ankle sprain, which normally is bad news because normally that's kind of a 3 to 6 week type of injury. But unfortunately, in this case, it was not as severe as the Cowboys and everyone feared. He will not play against the Commanders, but there is hope that he'll be back against whoever we play in the wild card weekend. So that would be huge. Obviously, get that number 1 seed, give him another week to rest. That'd be even better. But Tyler Biadasz, I thought his season was done, but now it looks like you could see him back for the playoffs. So huge news there. Just wanted to mention that real quick. And I think that's about it for the injury front. I covered Van Der Esch and Hankins earlier, so that's about it. Again, let me know one more time. Would you rather play the Bucs with that 5th seed, or would you rather play the Packers or Lions or Seahawks? Depending on what works out. But thanks again for watching. We have one more game. Get it right. Get it right against the Commanders. Blow them out of the water. Prove that you are a true contender and that you can go out and beat anyone. You beat the Eagles. You beat the Vikings. 49ers are still out there, and they're, I think, probably the team I'm most concerned about, even with Brock Purdy at quarterback. But this division, this conference, should I say, not the division, this conference is weaker than it has been in years. You have a chance this year like none other. I mean, Brady and Rodgers, they might sneak in, but they're lower now. The 49ers, Eagles, Vikings, I'm not worried about the Vikings. The Eagles, they're concerned, but we've beat them once now. We can do it again. The 49ers, they're concerned for sure, but they still have Brock Purdy at quarterback. It's better than, it's not as good as what they had last year. This conference is weak. It's not like the AFC. The AFC, there's a lot going on too, and a lot impacted. There's a lot there. Obviously, the Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, lots of teams that really have a chance to make an impact in the playoffs. In the NFC, it's scattered. It's a lot of uncertainties. There's not one team in the conference that anyone has, just undisputed confidence in. There's an if, there's a but, there's something with everyone. You have an opportunity like you haven't had in years. Cowboys, get it right, because you have a chance to compete in these playoffs, because I believe in this team. I do, even though they've given me a lot of reasons not to. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm not gonna turn my back on them, but simply because this conference is not as good as it's been in years. It doesn't have a powerhouse team that just I'm terrified of. There's teams that scare me, but there's no one in this conference that I think we cannot beat. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that we should beat them. I'm not saying it's cakewalk, anything like that. But there is not one team in this conference that I am truly scared of, that I see and I'm like, shoot, we're going to have to play them. I don't feel that way. I feel that the Cowboys stand a chance against anyone. But they just got to play their game no matter what. No more playing down to lesser competition and just rising for the occasion when you have to. This team needs to find consistency. It didn't find it last week. You have one more chance before the playoffs to figure that out, to figure out the interceptions, to figure out play calling, to figure out consistency defensively too. There's a lot that still needs to be figured out, and you have one game left. It's got to happen. You got to go into the playoffs with confidence, with consistency, and with just a fire in you. You know, the Cowboys have talked about resilience this year, and they've showed it. They've showed resilience. They've showed how to handle adversity. They've done a great job. But for now, you got to lock in. You got to show that you know how to win. You've been resilient all year, but now you got to show that you can dominate, that you can win in the playoffs, that you're a contender and that you're the team that other teams should be afraid of. You got to prove that. You got to show that you're capable of that. And if you can go out and do that against the Commanders, that is a huge boost going into the playoffs, whoever you play. Because I don't care who you play in wild card. I don't care if it's the Bucs, if it's the Packers, if it's the Seahawks or the Lions. You should and you need to win that game. Because if you don't, someone needs to be fired. I mean, come on. I don't care who you play. That should be a win. I'm worried about the next steps down the road. I'm worried about the divisional round. I'm worried about the conference championship round. And that's, that's what I'm worried about as a fan, but you got to be able to lock in. You can't think about that as a player. You got to look at whoever you're playing, not as an inferior opponent and not as we should win this game, because you've done that this year and you've lost. You lost to the Jaguars. You lost to the Packers. You've lost to inferior opponents all year. You almost lost to the Texans. No matter who they play, this team needs to look at it as a threat. In the playoffs, every team is a threat. And as Cowboys have to stop playing down to their competition, because they're going to have lesser competition in the playoffs, for sure, in Wild Card Weekend. Don't play down to them. Treat them like you would treat the 49ers or the Eagles or the Vikings. Play your game regardless. You just got to stop looking at the team. Stop looking at the record. Just play your game. And if this team is on, like I've said, in all three aspects of this game, offense, defense, special teams, there's no one in this league you can't beat. But if you're struggling offensively, throwing interceptions, if the defense is allowing yards, then anyone in this league can beat you. And it's been on display all year. The Texans almost did it. It was this close. This team has got to be consistent. It's got to play their game regardless of the opponent. You're going to have lesser competition. You're going to have great competition in the playoffs. You got to treat everyone the same. You got to play your game. And that starts in the wild card. And then you got to take it one step at a time. As fans, I know it's easy to be, that should be an easy win. And it should be. It should be. We should not have a problem on wild card weekend. But I don't trust that it's just going to be easy going. This team has handled it, though, most of the year. They've undergone that adversity. They've been resilient. But now it's time to be dominant. I don't care who you play. It's time to assert your will. It's time to play your game, no one else's game. Play your game and make the team play to you. Don't play down to anyone. Play in your own game. Play the way we've seen this team be capable of playing, and go out and win that game. No matter what, you just got to win. And that's what it's going to come down to. That's my word for the playoffs. Win, because it's as simple as that at this point. There's no one you can't beat, but unfortunately in the playoffs, there's no one that can't beat you. That's just how it goes in the playoffs. That's how it goes every game, any given Sunday. It's just, you can't take anyone for granted, and you can't be afraid of anyone. Play your game, fight your fight, and win. That's all it's going to take, and that's what it's going to take for this team in the playoffs. It's got to just get that consistency, get the confidence. I think that's been lacking too. And go out and win. That's what it's going to take. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for sticking with me with my rant. This went pretty long, this video. But thanks again for watching. I will see you guys next time. One game left. Get it right. Obviously, I'll see you guys for the playoffs. And next week, I'll break down whatever crazy situation happens with the playoff picture. I'll let you know our seeding. The playoff picture will be in the description, just so you know exactly where we stand now. And I'll update that as follows, obviously, in the next week. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Go Cowboys.